is in charge of the cleanup? For 4 days, we've been trying to get an answer to one question: how much total shoreline has been impacted by the oil since the spill started? But the United Command of the government and BP has steadfastly refused to answer our question. All they will say is that as of tonight, 52 miles of shoreline are currently impacted. And add to that the complaint from the Gulf that cleanup efforts are disorganized 59 days into the spill. Once again, we want to show you the organization chart showing the labyrinth of agencies involved in decision making. And David Muir was with two frustrated governors today. David?
So frustrated, Diane. I'm standing on one of those giant barges tonight with the tanks meant to be vacuuming up the oil. It should be out well into the Gulf doing its work tonight, but on day 59, trying to figure out why it's still docked here and who's in charge was, well, exasperating.
Case in point, Buras, Louisiana, where for the last 24 hours, those barges carrying giant vacuums sat here under orders not to move.
All 16 of these barges have been halted.
Is the most frustrating thing.
Louisiana's governor told us he wasn't told why.
The president has said you can pick up the phone and call him. Did you tell him this? Did you call him?
We talked to the White House yesterday. They promised us they were going to get it done as quickly as possible. And the problem is that every time you talk to somebody different in the Coast Guard, you got a different answer.
Jindal says at one point the Coast Guard said it couldn't find the people who put those barges together.
So who's in charge here?
Well, the Coast Guard's the one that stopped them from going to work.
But as governor of this state, can't you say, stay out there, stay working?
Coast Guard came and shut them down.
And then today, while we were there, word from the Coast Guard saying, go ahead.
If you look behind me, you can see the first of the barges now heading back out into the Gulf after learning they can actually use them again. 16 of them have been sitting here. These vacuums all hooked up, ready to go. The governor says they could have been collecting oil.
And this sort of confusion is still everywhere. In Alabama today, Governor Bob Riley told us he asked the Coast Guard to find Ocean Buoy, tall enough to handle ocean waves. They went all the way to Bahrain to find it. And when it came time to deploy it here,
it was picked up and moved to Louisiana.
Without it, oil came ashore in Alabama.
Who's in charge here?
Great question.
The governor says there is still no one person saying yes or no. He says governors come up with their plans working with the Coast Guard, but then he says all of those federal agencies start weighing in. Fish and Wildlife, EPA, OSHA, all with veto power. While back in Louisiana tonight, a frustrated Governor Jindal, too, doing the math.
Remember when you and I last visited one of these? He said during our visit, they sucked up over 4,000 gallons.
During that visit, David, so how much oil could have been collected if there hadn't been that delay?
Yeah, incredible. 4,000 gallons, he said, and we were only out there for about an hour last week with that vacuum. So in 24 hours, this one barge could have picked up 96,000 gallons of oil. People laughed at these vacuums, but they've been making a real difference. This one's got to get out there tonight.
And again, two governors now saying they cannot get straight answers. Thank you, David Muir.